This one's about that.
Greetings, this is Hoss Turlington from Delaware County, Oklahoma. The purpose of this video is to shorten a previous question and answer session among the four candidates we have for the 2020 sheriff's election. As many of you know, our sheriff, Harlan Moore, is supporting the current undersheriff, obviously, to take his place as sheriff. And after an earlier debate, whenever the undersheriff, Tracy Shaw, came out with some extremely, to us anyway, in Delaware County, extremely anti-gun policies, I made a video of those, contacted the president of the Oklahoma Second Amendment Association, Don Spencer, who has written all of our pro-gun legislation in Oklahoma. And Oklahoma has the best in the country, by the way. So I have his personal number. I called him, sent him this video, and it resulted in the Oklahoma Second Amendment Association backing Mike Wilkerson. But now we have this debate, which took place before the primaries, when Matt North and Tracy Shaw were still in the election. I just took their answers out. If you go to rapeofdelco.com/videos, you can find this video on YouTube. There's time hacks there where you can go to, it'll say 5 minutes and 30 seconds. What will you do to address the crime resulting from the prolific meth and heroin problems in Delaware County? You can click it, hear what Mike says, and then you can listen to what Mark Berry says. One more thing, you'll see that some of the questions in this question and answer session, they're not about policy. They're more like, do you have any idea how the hell government works, or at least at the county level? For instance, where does the money come from that the sheriff's office operates on?
All right, welcome everybody to the Delaware County Candidates Live Facebook, and for those of you who are live here, as we meet the candidates today for the sheriff. And
I'm Mark Berry. I was born and raised here in Delaware County. Been here all my life. I've got approximately 16 years of law enforcement under my belt. Work for Cherokee Nation right now. I'm a supervisor at a casino. I want to be your sheriff, plain and simple. I'm here for the people and the people only. Thank you.
I'm Mike Wilkerson. I was born and raised in Delaware County. Been a lifelong resident. Had 49 years of experience in law enforcement. All my college education was based on law enforcement. I've attended classes in criminal procedure, criminal law, and many others. I've averaged approximately 25 to 80 hours a year of continuing education in law enforcement. My purpose for running for sheriff is to bring back a sheriff's department that the people of this county can be proud of and have trust in. We have a huge morale problem. I've heard anywhere from 300 to 400% turnover in deputies. When people don't want to stay and work for you, you can't get the job done. You don't know the deputies. You have to know the deputy that works in your area, to trust them, and I want to bring that back. And I'd like to have your support and your vote June 30th, 2020. Thank you.
most of the questions tonight will be dealing with budget, but there are a few that have to deal with you as a person. And so we're going to begin with those. And since we have introduced ourselves, we'll go back and we'll start with our first question with Mark, and then go right on down again with each question. If you need me to rephrase or read the question again, just let me know, and I'll be glad to. They're very simple questions anyway. First question: what values do you hold in high regard, and how do you ensure that you live by those values?
I live by the values. I took that oath to serve the people. The ethics value. I've lived by the ethic. I live by the Bible. I live by God's word. And, you know, you ought to know what's right and what's wrong. And I believe that, you know, I was taught right, raised right.
I believe each one of us try every day and strive to live better. God gives us a purpose in this life. It's up to us to live that life. He's led me to be a police officer for the 49 years that I've done this. As far as ethics go, you have to be an ethical person, because you can't let your personal feelings and what you believe yourself in your heart interfere with the way that you perform as a police officer. There are times that you have to treat every individual that you come in contact with, regardless of whether they're the same race, the same religion, it doesn't matter. So that's my goal, is to make sure that every person in this county gets treated the same, regardless of who they are or what they are.
All right, Matt, this question will go to you first, and that is, please describe to us your greatest weakness as you see it and your greatest strength.
I guess my weakness would be asking for help. I've always had to do it on my own. That's my biggest weakness, is being humble enough to ask for help. My strong point is, I believe my strongest point would be serving the people. Serving the guys that works under me. Anybody's ever worked under me, they will tell you that I will go out of my way for them. If you know me at all, that's just the way I am.
My biggest weakness sometimes has been too strong-minded. Sometimes when I've got to say this, when God wants me to do something, sometimes I fight him. And I work on that every day, so I'm trying to be stronger in that direction. I think my biggest strength is I don't believe in failure. To me, failure is only the first step to success. And I believe that from my heart.
All right, this next question will be the last question dealing with your personal, who you are. And it will go to Tracy to start with, and that is, please explain your stance on the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment.
Second Amendment, I'm 100% for Second Amendment. I believe in open carry. Number one, if I'm out on the street, open carry, I can see that gun. And what worries me is the one that I don't see. So yes, I do believe in open carry. I believe, you know, in every right that you have. You know, we had forefathers died for us for the Second Amendment.
I believe in the Second Amendment and the entire Constitution of the United States that's written. I don't think we need to change anything in it. Our forefathers saw a good idea. They put it down on paper, and it's worked for several hundred years. I grew up in rural Delaware County, and I was a police officer in Solomon Springs. We had people there that carried loaded rifles, one in the chamber, or a shotgun, one in the chamber, and they never misused them. Farmers and ranchers. When you've got a pack of dogs and you're pulling into a field, gun doesn't do you any good if it's not loaded, and you can't take care of that threat to your animals. So yes, I believe that it's completely all right to carry a loaded shotgun or a loaded rifle. There's no difference in that than carrying a loaded sidearm. If I'm going to worry more about somebody swinging a gun around on me, it would be the sidearm, because it's a lot harder to get a shotgun or a rifle swung around on you than it is with a handgun. I believe in that so much that I was honored the other day, and I was endorsed by OK28, which is a constitutional group that many are aware of, and they have endorsed me for sheriff. Thank you.
This question will go to Mark, to start with, and that is, as to the overcrowding in the jail, share your plans to address this if you're elected. Overcrowding.
Number one, you're gonna have to be willing to and able to work with the DA, the judge, and try to get some of these people moved out and go where they need to go. Number two, it don't matter how big a jail you build, it's gonna always be full. Plain and simple. You know, until you get in there, there's really no set ways of handling it until you see what the problem really is and sit down with the DA and the judge and see if you can work some problems out.
I believe that one way we can take a lot of the overcrowding problems out of the way is on our misdemeanors that are nonviolent, hot checks, petty theft, just things that where somebody hadn't committed an act of violence, is release the person on a work program. We can release them to a county commissioner, we can let them work ODOT, they can be out here cleaning up right-of-ways, picking up trash. A lot of people can't afford to pay their fines, so they just get warrant after warrant after warrant. So if we allow them to work their fine off instead of trying to pay it off, our community benefits from it because our streets and our roads are cleaned up, and the county commissioners have got some free help, ODOT's got some free help. I believe that we can start programs like that. I've seen them be successful where I've been before, and I believe they can be successful in Delaware County.
This will go to Mike. As to personnel, how many presently are employed with the Sheriff's Department? And what are your proposed plans or ideas for improving that number and to help to secure and take care of the county?
To be honest with you, I can't tell you how many they've got employed there now. The turnover there's so fast and furious that one day the numbers change. I believe it would take anywhere from 16 to 20 deputies to cover this county right. I might prefer 20. Right now, I think sometimes we're running one deputy per shift. One deputy can't cover everything from Bernice to West Silent Spring. There's no way physically possible for one to do it. As sheriff, I'm not going to be too good to go answer a call. You're paying me as a servant to serve you, and if there's a call and I don't have a deputy, I can get myself out of bed or out of the house or wherever I'm at and go take that call. I don't see any reason why the sheriff, the undersheriff, an investigator, a sergeant, or whoever should never be too good to take a call. I know that they've got, in the last budget, I believe they got enough money in the raise budget to give each deputy a raise, and they chose not to do that. And now they want to take that money and buy new cars. I believe that's the intent. You can't keep deputies if you don't pay them good. You can't keep deputies when the morale is bad. I've had guys that have worked on departments where I worked that were offered $500–600 more a month to go somewhere else, but they didn't leave because they love their community and they love the people they were working with. They were praised for what they did right. And I believe that's the way we will keep the deputies in Delaware County, is to give them that pat on the back when they deserve it.
As far as the department goes, I really think that, you can squeeze a little money there to help these people out. I've got mechanics willing to come aboard and donate their time to keep these cars running. So there's a mechanic bill right there that could be used somewhere else. Until you get in there and see what you've got and see what type of vehicles you've got and see how wore out they are, it's really hard to answer these questions. It's like throwing up something, wishing for something. You can sit here and wish all you want. But until you get in there and see what you've got, that's the main thing. You know, you can talk about it all night long. But until you put action to it, you're not gonna get nowhere. You gotta have county commissioners working with you, I understand that. You know, you gotta be able to work with almost every department. It's a good question, but it's a hard question to answer. Be frank with you. You know, when I was in there, I made $1,800 and my wife worked 2 jobs. Every now and then, I take a cooker up and cook a meal for everybody up there in the courthouse. Right there at the parking lot. And we had a little get together. We had the EMS, we had fire come over, we had JPD come over. Everybody worked together back then. Yes, the morale helps a bunch. Money helps a bunch. Where's it gonna come from? I can't tell you till we get in there.
This one goes to Matt. Concerning salaries, what are your plans to increase salaries in order to retain deputies, which we kind of begin to allude to that, so. You'll get to deal with that a little bit more on another question anyway. Salaries, how do you plan to increase them in order to retain deputies?
It goes right back to what I was saying before. You don't know until you get in there what you got to deal with. You got to read the books. Yes, I believe every deputy needs better pay. Okay, it's just like any other business. You know, yeah, you'd like to have good money. Yeah, you'd like to be able to support your family. You know, but as far as there's got to be ways of doing it. Got to be. I can't answer that. It's until you see the books. There was times when I was a deputy, I wish I had better pay. But like I said, my wife worked 2 jobs. We was just as happy then as what we are now. And, I make good money, but, I'll be taking a drop in pay to take this position. But, if I had to, I would probably give up some of my pay to help one of the deputies if he's in a bind. That's just the way I am. As far as salary goes, it's hard to say.
The budget's what it is, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. You've got the pay that's there. I truly believe that morale is one of the biggest issues at the sheriff's office. Guys are making $1,900 a month, you've got to make them want to stay there. If they hate their job, and I'll guarantee you, if you talk to some of these ex-deputies that have quit this 400% turnover rate, they're going to tell you that they got cussed at, griped at continually, and that's why they quit. They didn't quit because they was getting low pay. They quit because they was getting treated bad. You can't treat employees, it doesn't matter whether they're digging ditches, or building a fence, or welding, or being a deputy, or a fireman, or whatever. If you treat a person bad, they're not going to stay with you. Now, one way I do believe we can get faster response time is a good, well-trained reserve program. There was a time when I remember that we were turning down reserves because they wanted to work for the sheriff's office. And it's not just guys that are running, or women, that are running around out there without an education, without any kind of training. In today's world, reserve gets twice as much training as they used to get. They could not, in the past, take full-time classes. Now reserve can take a full-time course, just like the same courses that a full-time officer I've had reserve officers that wanted to go to investigator school, and I sent them. They're willing to take the training, and you're getting the benefit of somebody in your community that you know that's working for you for free. And they're serving, because they can't afford to quit a $60,000 or $70,000 a year job to work for $1,900 a month. I do believe there's some waste in the sheriff's office, and I believe when you cut that waste out, then you're gonna make more money for the employees and more money to hire more employees.
Okay, this question does go to you as we begin, and it is to explain how the budget is set up, where the monies come from in order to operate the sheriff's department. Mark?
It goes right back to what I was saying, you know, right back to the county commissioners. You've got to be able to work with them. You've got to be able to sit down with them. You got to have somebody going to bat for you. That's where you guys come in. That's where you guys, your vote is very important. County commissioner's race, the sheriff's race, it's your say on what you want out of this county.
Explain how it's set up, where the monies actually come from to run the sheriff's department.
Okay, once it's in the county fund, then the county commissioners do split it up. And I'm gonna take up the county commissioners just a little bit here. They get kind of thrown under the bus every once in a while, because they have so much money to split between the court clerk, the county clerk, the sheriff's office, themselves. They can only make so much money, but they can't reach into the magic hat, buddy, and pull out an extra $20 million. It's just not gonna happen. They have to deal with the same budget the sheriff's office has to deal with. And I'm sure that when you get county commissioners that work with the sheriff, and the sheriff actually works with the commissioners and the other people that are elected to serve you in the courthouse, we can start getting a lot of things done. But right now, there's a lot of back and forth in the courthouse with the commissioners, and you can't work the government that way. No government, no family, no business can run when you have that much confusion, that much turmoil. You have to work with people to get what you want. If you run in there like a bulldozer every time you ask for money, they're gonna get to the point where they don't get it to you. So as sheriff, it'll be my duty to serve you the best I can serve you as citizens of this county, and then to work with the other servants of the county to get that done for you.
Next one will go to Mark, start with. Addressing the sexual assault incidents of the past and the lawsuits that are with that. Please address this issue and your goals concerning them.
You know, that's a bad deal. I was there when it happened. Okay, I was working for the department at that time. How would we address something like that? You know, it would be looked into. You know, it'd be investigated. OSBI would be brought into it. The DA's office would be brought into it, and there would be charges brought. You know, but as far as the, you know, it cost all of us money. Just in tax, sales tax, gas tax, you know. Need more cameras. Need cameras in the car. I don't know if they got cameras now or not. Need cameras in the car. There's gotta be a way to get cameras in the car. There's gotta be grants out there. You know, we've heard all night tonight about grants. There's grants out there. There's gotta be people to be able to write grants for the sheriff's office. Reach out and get this stuff. You know, that is like I said, a bad issue there, for the county, for the community, you know, and for the people that had to deal with it. It really was. But, you know, like I said, there's consequences on everything that you do in life.
In a civil case, entirely different than a criminal case. Criminal case, you gotta prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. In a civil case, it's 51%. There was some testimony given when this lawsuit came up, and an individual, and that's why you teach people how to testify and make sure your deputies know how. But a question was asked, is there a 50% chance this person did this? And the answer was yes. When you tell somebody there's a 50% chance that someone did something, you gave them you left them 1% of the truth, and we lost that. So teach your people how to testify. Put enough cameras in that jail that a cockroach can't hide in it. And then you hire people with enough ethics, background, and enough believing God that they're not going to pull a stunt like that to start with. And then if you find one that does in any way violate the ethics that a law enforcement officer should stand for, you do everything in your power to see that that person goes to prison just like you would anybody else. Now, we have to stand strong, we have to stand together, but there was a lot of mistakes made that cost us that $17 million.
All right, this next question will begin with Mike. How do you plan to equip your department to handle folks that they encounter that have mental illness?
Currently, we have to take 2 hours of mental health training each year. Every officer is required by the state. You miss the 2 hours of mental health training, they will pull your license if you don't get it done. 2 hours isn't enough. Anytime that I take a training, I try to take training that has the extra mental health hours in it. And it's going to take more training than 2 hours. But there is training in place. When we all know that someone I've had to talk people out of guns, pitchforks, knives, machetes, and I'm still standing here today because I knew how to talk to that person so that you could get them to put down whatever weapon they had. Walking in a house or walking up to I can't think of the number of times that I've dealt with World War II veterans that either had a gun or a pitchfork or something, and to just walk up and shoot that person because you don't have the training to talk them out of that. Now, there's times when you're going to have to. Nobody's going to avoid that. But we have to give the law enforcement officer the tools to take to that call. And that can only come from mental health professionals that are willing to do the training, and then the officers that I have will definitely take more than 2 hours of mental health training per year.
Mental health, if you've never dealt with it, you know, that is an experience that you will never forget. There's been several times, you know, when I took classes, I didn't think, I'll never use that. If you're out on the street, you'll use it. I can tell you 2 times, and they were Vietnam vets both times. One of them was right down there in Zena. He didn't want to talk to nobody but me. He got a 30-30 stuck to his head. I went inside and talked to him. Everybody else stayed outside. We walked out without the gun, and I made a promise to him that I would drive him to the VA hospital at Fayetteville. And that's what I did. You know, they're hollering for help. It's not just the vets, okay? There's a lot of them out there. Young man, I dealt with him one time with a guy. OHP showed up. There was 3 of us there, 1 OHP, 2 deputies. You want to get him to drop the gun? Give him a cigarette. And told him that I would take him to the hospital. You know, when he came out of that hospital from being transported and everything, he came up and hunted me down. He said, thank you. You know, that's worth it all, just to hear a thank you. You know, they're reaching out to you if you're willing to listen. You know, they don't need to go to jail. One of them, I drove right up here to J Clinic one time. He had a gun. And that's all, and all it took was, hey, are you out of meds? Are you out of your meds? Yes, I am. Put your gun down and go with me and I'll help you get your meds. I drove right up here to VA hospital, VA clinic, right up here to jail hall. And they took over there. You know, a lot of them, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for help. They're hurting down deep inside. You know, it don't matter if it's drugs or abuse from way back or, you know, dealing with issues over in the war. They're hurting. And these classes are good. And they do need to be used. And they need to jump in there and use them. And I would recommend that 100%.
All right, this next question then will go to Matt. And continuing with that idea of equipping and training, what other types of training do you see necessary and you will ensure that your department gets through it? You know, there's a lot of training out there that's good for the officer. Like we was talking about a little ago, you know, even your domestic violence. Domestic violence, any officer will tell you that's probably one of the dangerous calls that you'll ever go with, plain and simple. You know, there's driving, there's firearms, you know, there's even ethics classes, ethics training. You know, it's not going to hurt your officer to go to an ethics training once in a while and realize, hey, you know, something I've been doing, I've been screwing it up. What about somebody's right? You know, there's classes on people's rights. They need to know themselves when they're, you know, offending on somebody's rights.
Mental health, sexual assaults, domestic violence, every bit of that training is going to come in handy for any law enforcement officer, whether it's a deputy or whatever. I also, it's getting harder and harder to find somebody that can qualify your officers. We have to qualify with our weapons at least once a year. I think you actually need to qualify at least twice a year. I know where I was in Kansas, I sent 2 officers to school so they could qualify us, and they also helped other agencies who didn't have a firearms instructor so they could qualify. That's worked out real successful for us. I would do the same thing at the sheriff's office if there's not an officer there that is firearms instructor. Any training that we can get, it's vital. You have to take the legal updates, and even the legal update course is 4 hours long. That's not enough time for a legal update because, as has been mentioned, our laws change every year, and that update is really, really long. And a lot of times when you go to that legal update course, if you don't look through the material that they give you, they only graze over the really important law changes. So if you don't study it yourself, you don't get the mind that will get us in trouble as law enforcement officers. So you can't have enough training, and a guy who's only willing to get 26 hours a year to the least amount of time that you can get in training as a law enforcement officer in the state of Oklahoma is 26 hours. Anybody who just takes the 26 hours, a lot of times it's because there wasn't enough time. But if you've got time, you need to take at least 40 to 60 hours of training every year to make yourself a successful law enforcement officer and to serve the people that you're serving.
And it's basically the last question before we allow you to wrap up with the last remarks. And that is, what do you see as the most pressing issue for the Delaware County Sheriff's Department?
You know, I have to agree with Tracy on that. You know, jail is probably the sheriff's biggest headache. It's probably more than a headache, it's probably a nightmare. Yes, something will have to be done with the jail, but still yet, it don't matter how big the jail is, or, you know, where you move it, it's not gonna be big enough. And yes, they're gonna always fight over something in there, and yes, you know, we've been pretty lucky that there hasn't been a wrongful death. That's just the way they are. I've worked in jail, I know. They'll fight over a spoon. They'll fight over a plate of food. And, you know, there's plenty of food. Or back then there was, I don't know how it is now, but I've seen them fight over a plate of food. So they're gonna fight over anything. And, you know, that's the biggest issue right there, is jail. But, you know, I don't believe that the jail needs to be moved. Yes, the jail needs to be bigger, but I don't think it needs to be moved. There's got to be ways around this, you know, keeping it here in the center of Delaware County where it should be. You know, I've heard rumors, and that's all I've heard, that's all I know, it's rumors, that the people would want to move it up to Alva County, up there on the line, all the Delaware County line, and split it between Alva and Delaware. I think it needs to stay in our center of our county, right with the courthouse. You know, it's gotta be growth, it's gotta be bigger, I agree, more beds, but like I said before, it's, no matter how big it is, it's gonna always be crowded.
I wish I had about 15 minutes to answer this one, because that's about what it'd take. The jail does have to be bigger. And I have some ideas on that I'd like to share with you, but there's not enough time to share that. We've got to train those officers in the jail. When this jail was built, it was started out to be a 150-bed jail. It was supposed to have a larger women's unit. It was supposed to have a juvenile unit. It was supposed to have a mental health area. It was supposed to have a drunk tank. And as we remodeled the courthouse, the beds kept going down. We were housing 90 to 100 prisoners when Jim Mark was sheriff in the old jail that was designed for 30 prisoners. That's the reason we had to build a new jail. As the courthouse got remodeled, and it needed remodeled, the jail went down to 120 beds, then it went down to 100, then it went down to 90, then it went down to 80, and we ended up with 60 beds instead of 150. So the money was, in my opinion, it was totally misspent, because the tax that we voted on to build a new jail didn't get spent to build us a new jail. So we've got to do it, and I would love to take the time to spend with any of you that want to take the 15 or 20 minutes that it takes to explain this whole thing. But I do have some ideas, and the one thing that I want to tell you, as sheriff, we are all going to have to work together to solve the problems we have in Delaware County, and there are many.
All right, we'll make full circle. We'll come back now again to Mark in our final remarks. Please explain to everybody why they should vote for you for sheriff of Delaware County.
Number one, I want to serve the people. I believe that the county or the sheriff's office has forgotten who pays their bills. You guys do with your tax money. You pay our wages. And the deputies need to respond, no matter how big, how small the call is. I had no sheriff one time tell me, if there's a call comes in about a duck crossing the road, somebody better get out there and check on that duck. That tells me that every call, no matter how small it is just as important as the big call. That, you know, if somebody tells you that they're gonna call you back, or dispatch will tell you, hey, I'll have that deputy call you back, but that deputy never does get that message, how does that make you feel? Give you something to think about there. I want my officers, if they tell you they're gonna call you back, they're gonna call you back. If dispatch is gonna tell you the officer's gonna call you back, that dispatcher better get that officer that message. Okay? You're my number one priority. You're the one who'll be paying the bill. You know, you pay everybody's wages down there. That's the reason I want to work with you. That's the reason I want to serve you. I want to leave this county with a legacy. I want to leave this county with the best department that you've ever seen, that you could be proud of. And I'm sure every one of these guys do here. But that's my goal. That's my goal. Okay. I want to take misdemeanors. I want to put them to work. Misdemeanors now. And they show up. You know, we're not housing them. But there's got to be a consequence here for everybody. Write them a citation, get them before the judge, they got to pay before the judge. And this is where it comes down, working with the judge and working with the DA's office. Get them to show up every day and clean up trash, or pick up the parks, or mow the parks, or, you know, how many of these roads are getting trashed out? They show up every day. And after their fines are paid, I would reach down and write them out a resume to help them get a better job. If they showed up on time and every day and did what they're supposed to do. And that would go to work for the county commissioners too. You know, how much prouder would that be? You know, I think that's the sheriff's job, is to make the county, make the people in the county better. Make them feel more respectful for themselves. You know, we can all show them respect, but they've got to feel it down inside themselves. Thank you.
I truly believe that when you get elected to an office, that you become the servant of the people. It's not the other way around. I want to be your servant. I want to give you a sheriff's office that you can be proud of and that you trust. I want to bring back that in the last 8 years, the cooperation between the highway patrol, police departments, fire departments, and the sheriff's office has eroded to a point where it's just almost non-existent. I guarantee you that the sheriff's office depends on those small police departments. They depend on the highway patrol. They depend on those fire departments. And I need to work with them, and I need to work for you. And if you want a sheriff that has the education, the experience, and the background, and the will, and I'm talking, I don't mind. My wife can tell you there are times when I have been gone from the house for 24 hours, for 3 days straight in a row, without going back to the house, taking a shower, or shaving because I was working a case. And I will make sure that that same effort is put into the sheriff's office to serve you and to make you as proud and trustworthy of that department as I possibly can. It belongs to you, and you need to make sure. I don't just want to make you the promise that I'll do it. My phone number is on my cards. My phone number will be available to every citizen in this county. If one of my deputies, if a jailer, if a dispatcher makes a mistake or gives you the wrong answer, call me and we'll get it straightened out together. But if the sheriff's department, sheriff's office, the commissioners, the citizens, and every elected official in that courthouse down there will work together, we can make Delaware County a safer, stronger place to be, and I want to be a part of that with you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we're going to actually allow some questions to be asked from the audience, but my lovely assistant already brought me the first question. It's from somebody on Facebook, and I just put it this way: would you like? They would like to know who you would have as your undersheriff. Ask them a question, and then we'll start right here. Just start back here.
Be honest with you, I know who my undersheriff would be, but ethically, I won't say, I'm not gonna run under that person's name. I'm running it on my name, plain and simple. It's just not right.
I've spoken with 3, 4, 5 people that I think would make a good undersheriff. I didn't promise them a job. I asked them if they would consider it if I got elected. Because you don't just have, the sheriff runs on his own name. He doesn't run like the President of the United States and the Vice President. He is the only name on that ballot. And if a sheriff is willing to name an undersheriff before he takes office, before he's elected, he just violated every ethical thing that he could violate because he's promised someone a job for a vote. And I'm not going to do that. It happened 8 years ago when our now sheriff was elected. He ran with the promise that this individual was going to be his undersheriff. The person became his undersheriff, and in 2 months he was gone. Undersheriffs come and go. They're not elected. They're hired by the sheriff. There's no difference. The only thing they should be doing is to be that sheriff's right arm to make sure that anything that the sheriff wants to implement gets carried out the way that he wants it done. And he should be his second right arm. He should be his second set of eyes, his second set of ears, and a person who is anything that would happen to the sheriff that carries on in the sheriff's office exactly like it's been going. Like I said, you have to trust the individual who's running for sheriff to put a decent, honest undersheriff in with him. But it is totally unethical and it's dishonest to promise a job before you get elected.
Okay, we have one other question from the Facebook, and that has to do with transparency. And so I'll let Mike start us off. What would you do to make sure that the county was aware of all that was going on in your department as far as transparency?
If someone in the sheriff's office makes a mistake while I'm your sheriff, you won't find out about it through anybody but me. I will call the newspaper, I'll call the radio station, there's a Facebook page for the sheriff's department, I'll put it on there. I promise you that any mistake that's made while I'm sheriff is going to be open and available to the public. You're not going to hear about a lawsuit because jailers were shooting inmates with a taser, or because there was some kind of sexual contact between a female or a male prisoner and a jailer. If it happens, I have to be honest enough and truthful enough to tell you exactly what happened, how it happened, and not try to hide anything. I've always told everybody that works for me, tell me the truth and we can fix it. Tell me a lie and make a liar out of me, and that's not gonna be a good day for you. So transparency to me is one of the utmost, you can't have trust and you can't have belief in your law enforcement agency if they're not transparent.
Transparency, very important on my part and my officer's part. Transparency means that you will see me out. My door will always be open. I would love to have meetings in different areas every month involving my undersheriff, involving my detective, and discuss issues that you might have in that area. You know, there's more than one or two areas. You got Hickory Grove, you got Lakemont, you got Bernice, and Little Kansas, you know, everywhere. That's number one. Number two, I'm gonna pick a group, a committee from the north, south, east, west. And it's just gonna be people like you. I wanna meet with that committee once a month. I wanna hear what you're hearing out there. You know, something that I might miss. Hey, there's more burglaries over in this area. Well, that tells me, hey, we need to work that area a little bit harder. No, we need to be transparent. We need to be seen more in that area. We need to slow some of it down. I will always be here for you. My door will always be open. You'll always have my phone number.
I'm a court-appointed special advocate for children in the deprived and neglected court in Delaware County. There are currently over 200 cases in the deprived and neglected courts in this county. And it seems that as many as 90% of the cases involve methamphetamine and/or heroin use by parents or caregivers. I think it's pretty common knowledge that meth and heroin are prolific in this county. So my two questions are, what will you do to address that? And the second one is, why don't you just take their money and put it in your account and pay their bills? Pay your bills.
The drug trafficking is bad. Okay, only thing we can do is go after the big dogs, the one that's making it. You will never stop it. Never, ever will you ever see the end of it. I hate to say that. You can slow it down, but I will guarantee you this: 99.9% of the burglaries that goes on, 99.9% of the domestic that goes on has got something to do with drugs or alcohol or both. I will guarantee you that. But Tracy's right. You know, it's to the point when these new laws are voted on and they passed, they tied our hands. So now it's to the point where, you know, before we could go after the little dogs and work our way to the big dogs. Now we got to bypass these because it's a misdemeanor. Yeah, you get them in front of a judge, write a citation. But do you think that's going to stop them? They're going to laugh at you. I wish that we could stop them, you know, for the children's part, like you're talking about. You know, I used to be a bus minister, pastor. Children's very deep, very sincere to my heart. But, you know, as far as taking kids out of the home, you know, does that really solve that problem? Or is it going to make the problem bigger for that child later on? You know, that child is going to hate to see a law enforcement officer because he's the one that took me away from my mom and dad. So we've got to work on a deal to work with the parents, to get the parents cleaned up. How? I I don't know. You know, I'm always open for suggestions. That's the reason I want meetings with a group in society. You know, to open up, hey, you know, what can we do? You know, it may work. Your ideas may work. It don't hurt to try. As long as it's legal.
I think this question goes back to a lot of the transparency he was asking about a while ago. Having the meetings with the public, with you, once every month, every 2 months, every 3 months in different locations. Our laws got changed because people were misled. They thought they were voting for things that would release people from prison, that would make things better. And what we did, we voted to make methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin misdemeanors. Now, we can still go after that small guy. We can write enough tickets that it gets real uncomfortable for him to be in Delaware County. Our way to the top has diminished because we've got to catch the guy with that huge amount to make it a felony, or we've got to catch him selling it to someone else to make it a felony. Just mere possession anymore, it's a misdemeanor. You write them a citation and they go home. Now, I've heard some rumors that some legislatures are going to try to get that changed because people were misled. But if a sheriff could come to the citizens of Delaware County and said, hey, this is the way this law really is, and sit down and explain it to you, you'd have never voted for this thing. You would never have voted to write a person a citation that's got 10 grams of cocaine or heroin on it. You wouldn't have done that. We found another way to solve that problem. But these meetings that we've all talked about are going to be one of the things that we can do to help you to understand what the laws are going to be about. So, yes, I will write the citations. I'll try to make it as miserable on them as I can to get them out of our county. But the drug seizures that we used to get, we don't get anymore. It's got to be a felony before you can get the seizure. And it usually has to be enough that they're either, you get them for trafficking or distribution. So I hope that kind of helps answer that question for you.
Any other questions?
Well, we can't buy liquor, so we make speed. We can't buy beer, we grow weed. We do our best to avoid the law in the dry counties of Arkansas.